Hello and welcome back to the potty. Catherine and
Hey.
Bronwyn here. This is a little house tour of Catherine and Bronwyn's house. So this is her house.
This is my lounge room. This is where I spend most of my time. This is where I meditate. This is where I hang.
I wonder what's in the fibers of this couch. All the quantum
leaping that has been happening on this couch.
Yeah.
The places I've gone, you have no idea.
Literally just sitting here. That's like when you were just about to say we were going to talk about him, but when you were seeing someone, they were like, "Oh, so what did you do today?" And you're like, "What haven't I done?" They're like, "Where'd you go?" You're like, "Where haven't I gone?" But I've been sitting right here, but you would never understand.
I meditate for sometimes quite long periods of time in the quantum. Yeah. It just helps with my anxiety. Instead of stressing in the 3D world about what I'm going to do, I just create it in the quantum. Mm-hmm. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. One of the funniest things, so happy that something happened to you.
Yeah.
In the past 2 weeks, something actually happened. I feel like we always say that. Oh my gosh, thank God, but this was actually, what were you manifesting in your life at this time? Was it, do you reckon it's not like you were manifesting him, but you were manifesting meeting someone?
I was manifesting meeting people because I was meeting people at the time.
Yeah.
And I came in contact with some super amazing people. But like anything, you are going to meet some flops.
Literally.
That's kind of like how life rolls around.
Yeah.
And I met a gentleman, and we're going to call him shop fitter because he's a shop fitter. Mm-hmm. And I met him about 2 weeks ago, randomly walked into a pub on
You had this whole story that you messaged me Catherine, I did this. So when I was doing this, it was the universe was roadblock, so you had to do this thing. It sent you there.
Yeah, so I got locked out of my house because I think they were doing smoke alarms, and they locked my door, and I hadn't locked my door when I left that particular day. And my keys were in the house because I just went up the road to get something. So I had to walk to my real estate agent to get a spare key, and then as I was walking there, it started raining, so I went into the pub. And then I was just going to get a drink of water and wait for the rain to stop. And then I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I need to go to the toilet. I'll go to the toilet. As I was walking to the toilet, I ran into shop fitter. And on the way out, shop fitter was like, do you want to play pool? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll play pool.
I'm not rushing to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's raining. I've got to wait for the rain to stop. And then I'll pop over to the real estate agent. And he was with a friend. Anyway, we ended up hanging out for hours, me on my soda waters. And they were on the beers, but they weren't drinking. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about, life and where you want to go in life and all their dreams. And I was talking about what I want to do in my life. And it was a really good conversation. I was like, oh, I'm going to Pilates tomorrow morning at the beach. If you want to come join me for a coffee, I usually have a coffee after Pilates. And he came, and then we ended up hanging out for 24 hours. Mm. And then he went back. He had to go back to Cairns to finish off a job. And then he needed a place to stay while he was getting his place. I was like, you can stay with me for a bit until you get on your feet. And it was okay. I think the biggest thing was he snores. Mm. And I couldn't sleep. Yeah. No. And I'm a snorer, so I get it. But I wear mouth tape to stop that. And I'm kind of you need to do something to stop it because you can't just be
snoring all the time.
Yeah, and there are options Pop. He was a snorer. Mm-hmm. He used to put this plastic thing in his nose. Yeah, and he's literally $10 stop me from snoring. Yeah, I was like, you can do something like that. Anyway, I don't know, he just got weird. I don't know really what happened. We were getting along well. And then the third day, but I did notice he kind of spoke to me quite abruptly, and I would pull him up on that and be like, don't need to talk to me like that. I helped him get a car, and I would put the window down and he would be like, don't put the window up and down, it might break. Because I had a car and the window, people used to put the window up and down and it broke. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh, that was so stupid. Like, its only thing is to go up and down.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do with it? Like, what do you
and
mean?
he's like, don't do up, down, up, down. I was
I
like,
hate when people say that stupid shit. So
and then there was a song on and I turned it up. He's like, don't turn it up too loud. I'm like, it's 50% of the sound that it can go.
oh my gosh.
He's like, you might break the speakers. And I was like, you know what? I really don't feel comfortable in your car. Like this whole, you're in my home and I don't go, oh, don't sit on that couch or don't do that thing or don't use my water like that. Or like, I'm like very hospitable and I'm like, dude, it's just your fucking car. Can we just
chill out for a second?
It's just a fucking car. And like, I noticed that people that have like money blocks and things like that, they tend to be like real, like on edge. And I don't like that because I'm like, that's a you fucking thing. And then I had an issue with my daughter. She had a friend over and I kind of confronted the friend that
the friend
just kind of gets in Maddie's ear and
just a little weird relationship.
Yeah. And I confronted her and shop fitter heard the conversation. He was outside and he was like, you shouldn't have done it like that. You should have done it like this.
This guy's like 40 years old, has no kids.
And I'm like, dude, like this is day 4 of like lack of sleep and I'm tired and I'm dealing with a 16-year-old girl and her friends. And then he's telling me how I should have talked. And I was like, I really don't feel like this is your place. You need to back the fuck off. You don't know what you're talking about.
And then he started like getting like angry at you, but it was because he was like angry at her.
Yeah.
Like he was angry at Maddie because she was like being a bitch, but then like took it out on you.
Yeah, he was like, I'm just frustrated at the situation, but he was angry at me. I'm like, why are we angry at me here? And like I went for a walk and I came back and we sat down. So this is like, he came in.
This is like day 4.
Yeah, this is day 4. And he sat down and he's like, he basically said, like literally he sat right here. He looked at me and he said, I talk the way I talk. I'm not going to change for anybody. I don't coddle people. I don't, whatever. I am who I am. I'm never going to change for anyone. And I was like, so you want me to change in order to just put up with this, the way that you're speaking? And he's like, well, no. And I'm like, well, how's it going to work then? Because I don't want to be spoken to like that. And you've just said you don't want to change. And I said, that's not how relationships work. I tell you what I need from you and you tell me what you need from me. And then we meet in the middle. But both parties need to be working together in order for the common goal, which is respectfully communicating. And I think that's the key of all relationships. Family, friends, everything. Respectfully communicating is a human necessity.
Yeah.
However you talk to anybody, I always think, how can I say this in a way that that person's going to understand, that my point is going to get, like, I'm going to put my point across without triggering them, without that, but we're moving forward together and they understand what I'm saying. Because if I'm just going to come out and talk however I want,
they're not going to listen.
You're going to go, no.
Yeah.
And then it defeats the purpose of me saying whatever I want to say, because then now we're going to get into a fight because I'm going to be like, Catherine, your hair's shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I talk.
Yeah.
And you can just be like, well, can you just say, oh, maybe if you did your hair like this, this and this, it would look cool.
Yeah.
Instead of being like your hair. And if I said, well, tough, that's how I fucking talk, you'd be like, fuck off.
Yeah. And like also the converse, like what you want to say helps you.
Yeah.
So like if you want to be abrupt like that, if it's something for your good, if you're going to come across like a cunt, no one's going to do it. But if you do like reverse psychology in a way and you just be nice, people will do it for you.
Yeah.
So like you think you're gonna like, oh yeah, and people are going to do shit for you?
No.
They're fucking not.
And he doesn't have much people in his life.
Yeah.
He's got
something going on.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into that because that's not my story to tell, and I don't get involved when people tell me stuff about their personal life. I don't use it as collateral against them like he did to me. That's their journey in their life. And then
you went to Sydney?
I went to Sydney Saturday And then I came back Sunday night. He was being weird. I was like, hey. And he's like,
And also, we just had a baptism like the whole day.
it was
and
it was
so like and then you had to drive from Sydney all the way here, and you were probably like so tired. But you're like, oh, like, hi. And you just be like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep.
I was like actively being nice, even though like the Sunday was exhausting. Just the day was just like we had to go to Wollongong. We went to this place, and
It was just like really, really, really bad. I even like the next day, because when you told me the story, I was like, I can't believe she did all that, because I actually went to bed like the next day at 7 p.m. because I was so tired just from the next day on the Monday. Like,
and I got home and he was like, and I was like talking to him, and I was like, oh, I need to get my tires, my tires. And he's like, I was like, yeah, I might go there, call him at 9 o'clock. You should call at 8. You should look into the tires now. You should know. And he was just like being expert in tires. I'm like, okay. And I could not be bothered. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bed. Went to bed. Then he comes in, starts snoring. At 10 o'clock, I woke up and I'm like, I'm so tired. I really need to sleep. So I went up to the spare room, started sleeping. I could still kind of hear him snoring, but it was like enough that I could sleep. Then he sends me a message at 11 o'clock at night. Where are you? And I'm just like, I'm not. I'm like, ugh. Then I heard him like go outside and stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll tell him I'm upstairs asleep. And I'm like, I went upstairs and sleep in the spare room. Why? Because you were snoring. And then he said, I was awake when you left.
okay.
And I was like, I'm going back to sleep. He's looking for a fight.
Yeah.
And then he wrote back, yep. I'm like, all right, this fucking cunt. So I marched downstairs.
You rip off your mouth.
I ripped off my mouth tape in this voice. This is how I talk.
Yeah.
And I walked downstairs. He's on the toilet. And I was like, what are you trying to say? And he's like, ooh. And then he gets out of the toilet. He's like, whoa, you're screaming at me. I'm like, this is how I talk. This is the level. I've always said that I don't have an indoor voice. This is my voice. There's a reason why I talk like this, because in my future, I'm going to be a speaker. And like, do not...
Throat chakra.
Do not dim my fucking light here.
Yeah.
And he was like, woo. And I'm like, what are you trying to say? He's like, read the message. I'm like, I am. But what are you actually trying to say? I'm trying to ascertain, like, what's going on here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, like, rah, 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 I don't like the way you talk to me. I'm like, what? Talk to you how? Like, what are you actually saying? And he's like, when I went outside, just to check where you were, because you didn't message me back, I went outside, there was a guy out there. And are you messaging someone? I was like, I was fucking sleeping.
What a sigh. What the hell? Can you imagine, like, clutching straws like that? Like, that's crazy. You're like...
People walk past, like, I've got a pub up the road. I've got 5 pubs up the road.
Yeah.
People walk back on a Sunday night all the fucking time. On a street, people walk.
I wonder what he actually meant by that.
Well, my friend reckons that, like, he must have done something on the weekend when I wasn't there for him to be, like...
Projecting.
Yeah, like, for him to...
It wasn't, like, exclusive anyways. It wasn't that big of a... As in, like, even if he did something, like, it's not that big of a deal. Is it not?
Well, I wouldn't be... Like, we were
Yeah.
not seeing other people.
Okay.
But I'm...
Yeah.
That's just while he was in my house.
Yeah.
Because that would be a bit weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I was like, no, like, what? Are you serious? And then we were just back and forth, and I'm like, walked away. I'm like, this situation is crazy. And then he goes, you're crazy. And I was like, what did you say? And he's like, you heard? I'm like, no, what did you say? You mumbled. Say it with your fucking chest. You got something to say, fucking say it. And he's like, you're crazy. I go, I think it's best you leave. If this is going on and I can tell that you don't want to drop this, get out. And he's like, I'm not going to be spoken to like a piece of shit. I don't want to be. And then he starts going about me about what kind of mother I am.
Oh, no, he was like, I was going to leave anyways. I'll just leave in the morning.
And then I was like, no, you can leave now. And then he was like packing his stuff, like, rah, 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 whinging. And I was like lying on the bed and he was just packing his stuff. And he's like, just saying horrible. I don't even know what he was saying. I was not really listening. I was like, okay, sounds like projections to me. Then I was like, oh, and he's got my key, and I need my key. And he's like, and then he walked out of the room. He was getting some stuff around the house. I was like, can I have my key? And he's like, you'll get it. I was like, give me my key. And then he threw it on the floor. And I was like, where is it? Because, I've got like those hardwood floors, like the original. So there's dark bits in it, like there's knots in it. I couldn't see the key. I'm like, where is it? And he goes, sounds like a fucking you problem. So I had to get on the floor and find my key. And that was when I was like, you're a fucking psycho. Like, you.
Acting like an actual baby.
Then he like collected all his stuff and then he left. He left my front door open, my back door open, every light in my house on. He left my garage door open. He left my back gate open. He left my front gate open. Whole thing just like being a child. And I'm like, I fucking helped you out.
Yeah. And like maybe because he doesn't own a house and he's homeless.
He's homeless.
So he doesn't understand the like you needing to close doors or turn off lights.
Honestly, I think because when I met him, he didn't have a car. And he didn't have a home. I think there was like some part of him that felt insecure, which is 100% him. And moving forward,
no more homeless people.
But it was really.
Oh wait, he's meant to come over today.
He's coming over. He's got a package. So I had my skateboard in his car. And he came over to get his charger. He left his charger here and a few other things. And then he said, and then I was like, can I have my skateboard out of your car? And he's like, I put it in my storage unit. And I was like, why? He's like, don't worry, you'll get it back. And he's like, by the way, I have a package coming. Can you let me know when it's here? And then I'll give you back your skateboard. I'm like, oh, so you kept my skateboard hostage so I wouldn't throw away your package. Okay.
At least he's smart.
He's not very trustworthy of people at all.
I mean, I would have forgotten that there was a parcel coming, and I would have already either chucked out your skateboard or given it back. You probably have to give me a photo of what your skateboard actually looks like in case he did smash it and just had to buy another one. It's like a penny board. It comes with a penny.
It's like Impala, which is like one of the best skateboards. Yeah. But it was a really good lesson for me because I have a history of helping people. It's one of my toxic traits that I've had to move away from. And the thing is, I see the potential in people, but potential's just not it.
Potential's just mental.
It's not it. And people need to, you shouldn't be having to do stuff for people straight off the bat. And I tend to do that. So it was a big thing for me. It was also, the last year, I've been kind of spoken to like a piece of shit by people. And I haven't stood up for myself enough. And this was like the moment where I had to stand up for myself. And I just the whole time I felt so neutral about the whole thing. Even when he was saying that stuff, I just felt very comfortable, very in my power. And it's just all the stuff that I've been talking to with the domestic violence women, and they're all about self-empowering. And I just felt the whole time I was in control of the situation. Because if he didn't leave when I said, I knew I could call the cops, and I knew I could call domestic violence. I could say there's a domestic violence situation. And I know if I call the police and I say that, someone will call me soon after to say, are you safe? And if I then say, no, I'm not, then I have domestic violence as well coming to my house. So if it's not police, there's someone checking in to make sure I'm safe. So I know my rights now, and I know the power that I have where I didn't know that before. And if he wanted to push further, I would push further.
Yeah.
And I would know that it's not going to end well for him. And regardless of what he was going to do, I was just I am going to put my fucking foot down, whatever. And I reckon 9 times out of 10, they're fucking pussies anyway. They're not really going to do anything. They're all fucking talk, all bark, no bite. And you just got to at that time, I had to be fuck you. No. And usually I'll be oh, I'll do it in the morning. But no, I was like, you got to go downstairs. You got to sort it out now. It doesn't matter how tired you are. You got to face these people head on. And like I did with Maddie's friend, I was fucking tired that day too. But I was like, she's here. She's in my home. I got to let her know that this is what's up. This is like, these are my boundaries.
Yeah.
And it was like a big thing for me that I was able to stand up for myself, that I was able to stand in my power. So it was a great lesson for me. I felt great about the whole thing. I really felt like I closed out a huge chapter of imbalanced friendships, like toxic friendships, toxic relationships. I feel like I closed out a huge chapter by doing that. So I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah. No, it was really good. Such a good lesson as well.
Yeah.
Just like, it's sort of like, and he sort of like encompassed all the characteristics of all your old boyfriends and all your old partners into like one person. So like you were able to talk to them like through him in a way as well, where like you didn't stand up for yourself in past relationships, so you were able to do it with him there.
And then it kind of like
dominoed into
it changed that. And honestly, like,
well, now that's like every time you think of like when you think of a relationship, you usually think about your ex-partner, but now you can think about the time that you stood up for yourself from your ex.
I don't look at the past like
oh, that was like me doing the flop.
Me not taking accountability, me not standing up for myself. I changed the story. And that is due to like me meditating, focusing on my future self and creating this version of myself in the quantum that is assertive, that does stand up for you. And I focus more on that future self than I do on the past. So when situations happen, I don't revert to default settings like I used to. I used to slide into the victim and be like, oh no, someone's in my house that makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. And I usually fall into that and be like, oh, he's so mean. He's such a dickhead. He's such an asshole. Like, what a piece of shit. And I would fall into the victim. And this is the first time I just was like, no, that was a lesson that I needed to learn to stand up for myself. That lasted 4 days. That was a very quick lesson. It was in and out, done and dusted, moving on. Yeah. And it felt really good.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That was sort of like when we were talking about, but I was like, and like the victim mindset and stuff like that. I was like, I remember like when I would call like the domestic hotline like a couple of years ago, not for me, but they'd be like, oh, that's really bad that she went through that. Yeah, he's a narcissist and he's this and he's that. And like, she went through something and she blah, blah, blah. And they would like sort of play you into the victim. Yeah. But you're saying that now, like, they don't do that anymore.
No, it's all about like empowering you.
And like a lady sort of said to you that like, in a way, this is, in a nice way, she's like, this is your fault.
She was basically told me how to respond because like my ex-husband, he's very like controlling, and I've had to navigate co-parenting for 8 years with him. And she was like, this is how you reply. This is how you talk. If you sit in the victim mindset, you're going to keep repeating that story. But she's like, you have to sit in the empowered spot and know that you have control over this situation. Like, you are in it. You are talking. Yeah. Change the way you talk. Yeah. And if you don't, like, well, she didn't say if you don't, but she was just like, this is how you do it. Boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can see. And in the past, I can see how I've been like, it's him. Yeah. He's a flop. He's that. He's this. But really, and then you said something to me like a few months ago. You were like, it's not about him. It's about you. Like, in every situation, it's not about him, it's about you. So, like, don't talk about him, talk about you. And that's what they taught me in the DV therapy. They were like, it's just taking it back to yourself. Yeah. And that's when I feel like things really shifted for me, where I was like, sometimes you think you're a woman, you're against a man. Yeah. He's got that physical, like, side. But I really just feel like every opportunity you have, you should really be, if someone's out of line, you really have to stand up for yourself. Yeah. And that's sort of with like domestic violence and like the physical thing, and like you can always think of the what ifs of what if this and what if that and and it could go forever. 100%. So when people, because sometimes, especially people just in relationships, like, and they have a flop relationship, they're like,
well, what if he was like more vulnerable with me? Or what if this? And you're like, well,
He wasn't.
he wasn't. So what are we doing? So why don't we just like call a spade and let's just like get into it? But that's what I was. We had a conversation with this girl the other day, and we were just talking about stuff, and it was a lot of focusing on others and like, oh, this and then that. I want to manifest him, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, or like, I want a job. I want a job because I want to help people, and I want them to be empowered, and I want them to be this, and like, especially with like, I feel like nursing for some reason that's always like the field where people are like, I want to be a nurse because I want to help people because I'm so compassionate. You're like, why are you doing it for others? And like, think of everything like in any situation. I have to try and think like, okay, how do I make this about me? But like in a way of like, it actually is about me because it's my fucking life.
Well, and if you don't make it about you, who will?
Yeah, like you were saying, because I was saying that like nurses, you know, I feel like every time someone's like, why do you want to be a nurse? They're like, because I love helping people. And you're like, that's a fucking fake ass answer because your experiences with nurses are not giving compassion.
No, I don't have a good experience. I mean, some of them are great, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I've had, especially when I had my first daughter, forcing me to breastfeed,
Screaming at you.
yelling at me, and because I was a cesarean, my milk just wasn't coming through. So you get like pre-milk, which is just like a glucosey kind of,
Pussy.
but it's not like
Real
milk, full of nutrients and all that kind of stuff. So, my daughter was 11 pounds. She was fucking huge.
Yeah.
And I was not giving what she needed to get. She was definitely, what is it? Failure to thrive, where they don't attach.
Yes.
And she wasn't attaching, and I was struggling. And I think we were day 3 or 4. Still,
Hadn't eaten.
no. And she wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. She was crying. I was crying. And this nurse is like, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. And it wasn't, I was crying. There was this one moment I was crying. My daughter was crying. And my mum came in. My mum was coming in like all the time because she lived locally and I didn't have any clothes. I was so unprepared because I didn't know what gender I was having. And mum's like, oh, they've got to, she went in and bought all these like really tiny outfits, and then mum had to return them all because Maddie was so big.
Because she was like a month late.
Yeah. So mum was at the hospital, and she was like, she stepped up and she was like, this is a big baby. Bronwyn's struggling. She needs milk. And they were like, okay. And they made me sign this waiver to allow them to give the bottle. It was so horrific. I put me off breastfeeding completely, that when I went to have my boys, I asked the OB to give me a tablet. I didn't want milk. I bought my own formula. I bought my own bottles, sterilizing kit. And if anyone was going to say something to me, I was just going to be like, stop.
Shut the fuck up.
Like, this is my body.
Yeah.
This is my choice. This is my child. Like, you cannot tell me that I have to do this.
And because you were so young and you were so, it was your first, and like this lady was screaming at you that you have to breastfeed. You were like, well, she's the nurse. She knows.
And
she's so compassionate.
The first night I was just out of surgery and I wasn't having any milk. She grabbed Maddie's head, chucked it onto my boob, and she's like, she'll get there eventually. Just hold her head there. And Maddie was like, wah,
yeah,
wah.
she's just like,
yeah, and she's like, just kept it there.
oh my gosh.
And I was like, I really don't feel like this is, I don't know what it looks like to breastfeed, like to start breastfeeding. I've never like looked into it. I don't read baby books because I don't fucking care for them. I feel like you've got to be in the moment and do it. And I was like, I don't really feel like we should be doing it like this. And when I went private, I had, they were okay, but they're busy and I respect them. I respect they've got a lot on their plate. I'm the most low-key person. Like, if I can do it, I will. I will not expect nurses to run around and change my bed socks and fix my blanket for me. But when I had a block after surgery, they did have to help me change like Liam's nappy and stuff like
Because
that.
you can't get up.
Yeah, because I had a block. My whole legs were paralyzed. And she, like, no one was coming in. I was pressing the buzzer, everything. And I understand that they're all busy and I would never, like, overstep.
Yeah.
Like, as little I can call them,
Yeah.
the better.
Yeah.
Because I know they've got other stuff to do. So when I do need them and they're rude,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, are you projecting? You're like, I'm sure other patients have given you a hard time and I respect that, but you don't need to come for me.
Yeah.
And I just, you
end up having to smash the button on the bed.
I had to get the remote and then smash it on the bed to get someone to come in. And
You imagine you were like,
because I
just like sort of screaming.
Because Liam was crying, so I was screaming for them and banging because the banging was louder than my screaming.
Oh yeah.
Because I had to outdo Liam because he was crying.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And that's why I feel like if you're going to be a nurse, do it like. And I was saying, I feel like if you went to a nursing convention and you were like, okay, everyone, why do you want to be a nurse? And 99% of them are like, because I want to help people. And if there was one person that was like, you know, I did it because night shifts, you get really good pay, you know, it works I can work like 3 days a week and work two 12-hour shifts.